is the right response for this movement. But for a long time, we didn't have it. For a long time, the response to Roe versus Wade was, well, a lot of fire and brimstone, a lot of mountaintop moralizing about how horrible abortion was, and passing laws to try to condemn that. And all of those things, of course, are legitimate things to say. But we're talking about people here who have been lied to. People here who are hurt, who are disillusioned, in many cases abandoned. And the last thing they want to hear is someone standing up and pointing a finger at them and telling them how horrible they are for thinking about doing what they're thinking about doing. And what First Way has done and what you are doing now is doing exactly what the man who started this movement called Christianity, did. Was he embraced and loved the sinner. He embraced everyone with the truth in love. This movement, this center, is a source of love, of God's love, of Christ's love, here right in the middle of Phoenix. And it's transformative. What you're doing here is changing the culture of this country. You started 43 years ago, but a lot of other centers took a lot longer time to come around. And now the pregnancy center movement is spread throughout the country. All over America, they've popped up over the last 15, 20 years in particular. And I believe it is the principal reason why America is beginning to change its heart. Because, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of little boys and little girls in America who wouldn't be here but for this center and centers like it. And as a result, they're witnesses. They're witnesses to the truth, to their friends and neighbors, about what the dignity of life is and what that blob of tissue is in the womb. This movement is about truth in love. And as what we've seen from Planned Parenthood over just the last few weeks laid out, it's about lies and horrific procedures, the man's inhumanity to man laid out. It's ugly. It turns people's stomachs and turns their hearts away. And that's why it's so important that you're there right now. That's why it's important that this gala not just be successful, but ridiculously successful. Because you have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to gain market share. If you don't have the resources, to go out and reach out, to advertise, to let people know that you're there. I drove by the center today. Now, I don't know whether I was driving north or south. I'm from Pennsylvania. We never give directions saying go north or go south because all roads are like this, so you have no idea where you're going. But I know driving one way, you can't, there's no signage. We're the billboards all over town talking. Where's the money that's necessary to let everyone know as much as possible where God's love is when they've been abandoned by everybody? The father of the child, parents, friends, and they're all alone. They need to know you're there. And that's what tonight's about. So let me thank you for being here. I travel around the country, and obviously I'm on a little mission right now. People are really upset. They're upset about what's going on in the country. They see something big happening. They see our culture fracturing. Not just with court decisions, but come on, let's just be honest. The breakdown of the family has been occurring long before the Supreme Court decided this case a few weeks ago. It's been going on for decades. Slowly but surely, the American family is fracturing and coming apart. This is just sort of the final death knell, at least according to many, to what is, according to Catholic teaching, the basic foundational unit of society, the family. Now we look at the family today and it's hardly recognizable. And people are worried about it, and they have every right to be. 40% of children in America are born out of wedlock. If you go to poorer communities, it's much, much higher than that. What's the chances? What's the chances of those families succeeding without fathers in the home? It's another great thing about what you're doing here. You're recognizing the importance and centrality of the family. You recognize the importance of fathers in the lives of these children. I'm sure you've seen the statistics that anywhere from 80 to 90% of men in prison didn't have a father growing up in the home. You can go all through all sorts of statistics. I can stay here all night and talk to you about all the statistics about what happens when families break down. And they're all true. And here's the amazing thing. Even folks on the left now are beginning to recognize it. There's a book written just a few months ago by a liberal Harvard professor. The name of the book is called Our Kids. It was a book written to talk about how he grew up in the 1950s in this town in Owen. What that town's like today and the people growing up on the different sides of the tracks that still exist in that town. And you look at the lives of the poor, those who were struggling in the 1950s and 60s, and the amazing amount of success they had. Why? Because almost all of those poor families poor kids came from stable families. Today, there is no such thing. Most of these kids are growing up, almost all of them are growing up without any father presence in the home. And so your program here to reach out to fathers and incorporate them is absolutely essential. If you want to solve the problem of out-of-wedlock births, you want to solve the problems of the breakdown in the family, we can't continue to ignore fathers. And what you're doing here, again, is healing, is reuniting and bonding, which is so, so important. So I just want to thank you. You're here tonight to support an organization that is on the forefront of defending and protecting human life, of giving dignity to all human life, and on the forefront of the central breakdown that is causing society to crumble, and that's the breakdown of the family. I can't think of anything else you could do and contribute to do more. So thank you. Now, I want to point out a couple other things to you that might maybe surprise you. Frank was very generous in describing my history in the Congress and all these great successes. But I have to tell you, I came to the United States Congress vowing never to mention the word abortion. Never. I came from a 60% Democratic district. Frank came from worse yet. Northern California. Those are real Democrats. But I said, look, I'm a tough district. And I got redistricted into another district, which was even worse, 70% Democratic against another incumbent. No way I was going to deal with these controversial issues. And I didn't. I ran for the Senate, low-keyed the abortion stuff. Low-keyed, and I'll be honest, I was pro-life. I voted pro-life, I had a % pro-life record. But I just kept it down. And the reason was, Pennsylvania's a tough state. It has 1 million more Democrats than Republicans. And they were calling me the most outrageous things. I'm this radical conservative. The headline of the Philadelphia Daily News that endorsed my opponent, the headline was, "Be afraid." They were talking about me. Be afraid, be very afraid. That's what they said to me. And so I was this conservative juggernaut, and I ended up winning. Got elected when I was 32 to the House, 36 to the Senate. I think the next oldest person in the Senate was like 20 years older than I was. So I was this young guy, got elected, and had run for office, beat incumbents my first 3 races. I mean, who does that? So I came to Washington. I was this, I was this world beater, right? But I have to tell you, when I got to Washington, D.C. as a United States Senator, I had a 6-year term, so I could sort of think about what I wanted to do. And I started thinking about, well, why am I here? Because I really shouldn't be here. And I shouldn't have won my first race. I shouldn't have run any of the races. I was outspent badly. I had no chance. Everybody did. Nobody gave me a chance. How did I get here? I had the help of 2 people that led me on that. And I want to share this with you because it's really important for you to remember this. One was just another colleague of mine, a senator, actually from Oklahoma, who walked up to me one day. I was walking down the hall, put his arm on my shoulder and said, we have a Bible study every Thursday. Why don't you come by? I said, I'm Catholic. Study the Bible? I know, all you non-Catholics think we don't read the Bible. It's not true. But anyway, I thought, okay, the Senate chaplain put a Bible study on, and it's a great chaplain. A guy named Lloyd Ogilvie. He was a Presbyterian pastor from Hollywood, believe it or not. But he was great. I mean, my voice, his voice was like the voice of God. I mean, it was an amazing voice. And he was a great man, still is a great man. And so I went to the Bible study, and then the second thing happened to me. Karen and I had been married for 4 years. We got married the year I ran for Congress. I don't recommend that. And anyway, we had 2 kids, a third one on the way, and we decided to move our family to D.C. because we just didn't want to be disconnected in those long days that the Senate requires. And so we moved, and we were looking for a parish that we could find. And I remember walking into a parish that Christine knows very well, St. Catherine of Siena in Great Falls, Virginia. Friends of ours suggested we go there, and I sat down, and this pastor got up there, and like, boom, just lit up my world. And I thought, wow, I'm 37 years old, and I have never heard the gospel like that. And I was blown away. I remember sitting there in the pew afterwards, just like spinning in my head. And I walked out of the church, and as I walked out of the church, I thanked him, and I kept walking to the parking lot, and I got angry. I got angry. I've been going to Mass for 37 years. That's the first time someone had the courage to preach the truth. Boldly, unapologetically, tying it right to me, grabbing me. And so I say to both folks who are here who are clergy and folks who are just folks, 2 people put me on a path to where I am today. One, because they were willing to step out and evangelize. Just put your hand on someone's shoulder and say, have you ever thought about? We're not very good at that. We followers of Jesus Christ are not very good at that. About putting the hand and saying, have you ever thought about? We just sort of keep it to ourselves most of the time. I was on the View later on in the interview. One of the people asked me about the meeting with Pope Francis. I wasn't there, my wife was there. And she referred to me as an evangelical Catholic. I embrace that term. I think we need more evangelical Catholics. Those who are willing to go out into the deep and put that hand on the shoulder. So that's one thing. People always ask me, what can I do? Okay, got all these problems in America. What can I do? that's one thing you can do, is you can share the truth. Share the truth. 2, for those of you who are here who are clergy, I have a little survey I want to share with you. There was a survey taken of pastors, Christian pastors, all denominations, what was their opinion on a variety of different world issues of the day. And they found out that 90% of pastors in America agreed with biblical teaching on everything from marriage to abortion, pornography, all these things. They asked a second question. How many of you ever preach about this on Sunday? And the answer, 90% don't. 90% don't. Now, I know, because you're here, I'm probably preaching to the choir. But I would say that America is in a moral crisis, to say the least. And I would say, without question, the reason for that moral crisis has everything to do with what's being taught in the pulpit and what's being taught in Christian or Catholic schools, or more importantly, what's not being taught. Without vision and leadership, the people shall perish. And that's what's happening. And so I would encourage all who have the opportunity to get up in front of a group, whether it's a mass or a service or whatever it is, to understand you have a moment. You have a moment to share something important. Take advantage of the opportunity you have. Don't mail it in. I wish I could had a nickel for every time I got up and went to a service. And because I'm in politics, I go to church services all over the place. And the folks just mail it in. You can't afford that anymore. What happened to me with those 2 people who contacted me, who touched me, is I started to come alive in my faith. I started to care in the same way. We just all of a sudden just dove in. It changed who we were. I realized that faith was something that sort of did on Sundays. If you asked me a checklist, whether I agreed with all these things, I could check all those boxes. It wasn't who I was. It wasn't the center of my life. It wasn't my reason for being. The whole idea of where your treasure, where your heart will be. My treasure was other places. But it changed. It changed me. I know some of you have gone through that experience. If you haven't, it's life-changing. Here's what I found out. I found out that God speaks in whispers. No, I haven't heard audibly. But you know. You know. And that God speaks in whispers, and if you're not close, you're not going to hear him. I can tell you for one, sometimes I deliberately don't get close because I don't want to hear it. I want to do what I want to do. But I found out through getting close that I was called on this issue, strange issue called partial birth abortion. I ended up jumping in with both feet, not because I wanted to, it's just happened. A lot of strange occurrences happened that all of a sudden, having never said a word about abortion, never, from that time of my coming to faith, I was managing the bill on the floor of the United States Senate. And did so repeatedly for years, until we finally got passed. And it's changed my life. Ever since I started to talk about the issue of abortion, the press started to change the way they talked about me. Oh, I was this dangerous conservative. Well, when you start talking about abortion and marriage and things like that, let's just put it this way. My kids, when they read the paper, after reading the paper for a while, thought my first name had changed to Ultra. So I know you have some legislators out here. And legislators who came here tonight because they stand for life. And let me assure you, they are not popular in their caucus. They're not. They're considered extremists, troublemakers. Because they make folks who tell you how pro-life they are actually vote on bills that are pro-life. You see, most pro-lifers, I hate to break this to you, most pro-lifers in Congress I suspect it's true here, would very much like to be able to say they're pro-life and never, ever talk about it. Never have to deal with it. And then you have certain leaders who force the issue, who draft the bills, bring them up, force votes. They are vilified in the press, and they are quietly discriminated against in their own caucuses. And many of them are here tonight, and I want you to give them a round of applause.